Open file. The B-17 had no rudder. One engine was burning. The co-pilot was already dead. 800 miles of enemy sky stretched between First Lieutenant William Lawley and the English coast. He was 23 years old. He'd grown up in Leeds, Alabama, a Saturday football town outside Birmingham, and he had 8 wounded crewmen in the back of the airplane. 2 of them couldn't move. 2 of them couldn't bail out. Read the next line carefully. Every man at his base, when they later heard what he was attempting, bet on the wrong outcome. What Lawley did over the next 5 hours has a name in the Mayday files. Pilots call it the Bringback. Most don't come back from it. Well, maybe say something before I say anything else. I've sat with men who flew bombers in 1944. They don't tell you the worst of it. The worst of it isn't the flak. It's the math you do over the target with your engineer leaning over your shoulder, telling you which engine you can afford to lose next. That's the kind of morning February 20th was. February 20th, 1944. The first day of what the 8th Air Force called Big Week, a 6-day all-in offensive against the German aviation industry. The target list ran through Leipzig, Bernburg, Tutow, Gotha. The objective was simple, and the cost was not. Strip the Luftwaffe of fighters before D-Day. Lawley flew with the 305th Bomb Group, 364th Squadron, out of Chelveston in eastern England. His airplane was a B-17G named Cabin in the Sky, serial 42-38109. Douglas built, fresh off the production line that January. The name was painted on the nose in white block letters beside a cartoon angel after a Hollywood musical of the time. They knew her hydraulic quirks, her tendency to drift right in cold air. She was their machine. That morning, Cabin in the Sky carried 10 men in a full bomb load east into Germany. Now, Lawley wasn't supposed to be a pilot. He'd enlisted as a private in August 1942, got flagged for officer training, walked into a B-17 cockpit by April 1943. He was the son of a railroad worker. He still rode home every Sunday in pencil. The letters were short and never mentioned the war. This was his 10th combat mission. The mission went sideways before they reached the target. Heavy cloud cover scrambled the bomb run. Cabin in the Sky stayed in formation, but the bombs never fell. The released racks froze solid in the cold of the bomb bay. There was no manual override that would work in time. They turned for home with 4 tons of high explosive still hanging under the wings. At 23,000 feet over central Germany, what was left of the routine ended. Roughly 20 FW-190s came at them out of the sun, a head-on attack, which was the only attack that worked against a B-17. The German fighter pilots had figured out the math 2 years earlier. Hit the cockpit, kill the pilots, the airplane comes down on its own. The first burst of 20mm cannon fire walked across the nose of the airplane and into the cockpit. The windshield blew inward. Co-pilot 2nd Lieutenant Paul Murphy was dead before the glass settled. The slugs went through his neck and chest, and his body slumped forward onto the control yoke. The B-17 went into a steep dive. Lawley was hit in the face. Metal and glass opened his cheek and his jaw. He was bleeding into his oxygen mask, and the mask was bleeding into the instrument panel. He couldn't see through the windshield because the windshield was painted with his own blood. His right hand was on the throttles. His right arm wouldn't move the way he wanted it to. He pushed Murphy's body off the controls and pulled the airplane out of the dive with his left hand only. The number 1 engine was on fire. The number 2 was throwing oil. Hydraulic fluid the color of strawberry milk was running across the cockpit floor at the rate of a heartbeat. Behind him, 8 of his 10 crewmen were wounded. Bombardier First Lieutenant Harry Mason had been hit in the leg but was conscious. Engineer Sergeant Thomas Dempsey was hit but functional. The tail gunner was out cold. Two of the men in the waist were bleeding badly enough that the others were holding them down. The file goes quiet here. Lawley gave the order to bail out. The crew prepared to jump. Then a waist gunner crawled forward on the catwalk and told him that two of the wounded couldn't get to a door. He could. They couldn't. That was the choice. Lawley took the airplane in his hands and turned it west. The math was not on his side. He had one good engine. Two were dead. One was burning. Control cables to the rudder had been cut. His oxygen mask seal was gone because his face was open. The rest of the 305th had pulled ahead. There was no formation to hide inside anymore. And the bombs were still under the wings. Every one of them. Mason crawled forward from the bomb bay. The bombardier had been hit through the leg, but he could still move. He took Murphy's seat. He didn't ask Lawley if Lawley was okay. He could see the answer. He reached for the throttles. Dempsey, the engineer, came up behind them. He went to work on the number 1 engine, feathering the prop, cutting the fuel. The fire went out. The prop windmilled and then froze. Lawley fought the airplane straight. Mason ran the throttles. Dempsey kept the surviving engines from quitting. Somewhere over Belgium, they got the bomb racks unstuck and dropped the load over open country. For 5 hours, those 3 men flew cabin in the sky west. The number 4 engine started losing oil pressure. Mason gave Lawley a morphine shot from the cockpit kit. The English Channel. At the coast, the number 4 engine quit entirely. They had 1 engine left. They were 60 feet above the water. There was an emergency strip at RAF Redhill, south of London. It was a fighter field. The runway was short and the approach was over trees. Lawley made for it. No flaps, no rudder, 1 engine, Mason on the throttles. A windshield he couldn't see through because his own blood was on the inside of it, and 1 hand on the yoke. He brought cabin in the sky in on the 3rd approach. The first 2 he'd waved off. The airplane wasn't tracking. On the 3rd, he set her down hard on the grass beside the runway. The last engine quit on the rollout. The airplane stopped. Lawley let go of the yoke. He looked at Mason. Then he passed out. Every man on board lived. The wounded were offloaded by ambulance within the hour. Mason kept Lawley conscious long enough to give his name. Dempsey walked off the airplane on his own legs and then sat down beside the runway and didn't speak for a long time. It was the right call, every part of it. Look, here's where the record gets specific. Cabin in the Sky was a write-off. They pulled the radios out of her and stripped her for parts. She never flew again. Murphy was buried at Cambridge American Cemetery. He was 24 years old. His parents got the telegram on a Tuesday morning. Lawley spent 2 months in the hospital. The shrapnel in his face left scars he carried the rest of his life. When he was discharged, he went back to flight status and flew 4 more combat missions over Germany, 14 in total, before he was reassigned home in June 1944. On August 8, 1944, the United States awarded First Lieutenant William R. Lawley, Jr. the Medal of Honor. Harry Mason received the Silver Star. Tom Dempsey received the Silver Star. Every surviving crewman on Cabin in the Sky that day was decorated. Lawley stayed in the Air Force after the war. He flew bombers through 2 more decades. He retired in 1972 as a colonel. He went home to Leeds, Alabama. He died on May 29, 1999, at the age of 78. In the 55 years between Redhill and his death, he did one thing consistently. He never said the names of the 8 men he saved. Now, I think about that a lot. He had the names. He had every name. He had photographs of every man on that crew in a shoebox his wife kept on a closet shelf. He just didn't say them. I think it's because saying their names out loud would have implied he'd done something extraordinary. He didn't see it that way. He didn't decide to be brave. He decided to keep his hand on the wheel. Then he decided again. Then again for 5 more hours. That's the choice. Small actions made repeatedly while terrified. There's a flight jacket in a glass case at the National Museum of the Mighty 8th Air Force in Pooler, Georgia. Brown leather, A2 cut, with a 305th Bomb Group patch on the shoulder. The name tape on the right chest reads, Lawley W.R. Beside it, in the same case, is the dog tag he wore the morning of February 20th, 1944. File closed.